Okay, so finally we reached to learning path number 3, which is focusing on management and governance. Now, this is the last learning path. Technically, this is the last module in which we have certain topics and concepts which you need to understand. So let's start with this. Let's focus on the learning path outline first. We are going to talk about this 4 particular topics. First is cost management. Obviously, cost is a very important thing, especially when you are moving your resources to cloud. Now, we are going to focus on cost and pricing calculators, where we have Azure pricing calculator, and then we have something which is TCO, which is known as total cost of ownership kind of a calculator. We'll talk about both the calculators, and then we also have to understand how we can do the cost management, especially when you do not want a shock at the end of the month when you get the billing. If you do not want to get shocks, if you want to know where we have utilized how much amount of money in that, then you need to do the cost management properly. After that, we have to focus on governance and compliance, a second important thing obviously, where we are going to have tools like blueprints, policies, and resource logs, which will make sure that we and all the employees of our organization use the compliance standards. We have a service trust portal, which we'll discuss in that. After this, we'll focus on resource deployment tools. Now, we have done the deployment mostly using the graphical user interface provided by Azure portal, but that's not the only thing. There are tools like PowerShell, command line interface, which is Azure CLI, and we also have Azure Arc and ARM, which is known as Azure Resource Manager templates. Now we are going to talk about those deployment tools and when we have to use which one. And after that, we have monitoring tools. Obviously, once resources are deployed for a couple of days and couple of months, we need to make sure that we should have a proper monitoring tools placed there so that we can understand what kind of things are happening in that. Well, we have Azure Advisor, we have Azure Service Health, and we have Azure Monitor, which mostly take care of almost monitoring of each and every resource on Azure Cloud, as well as some of them take care of the on-premise resource monitoring also. We'll talk about this in this particular module, so let's get started. First, let's focus on cost management. Now obviously, cost management on cloud is very similar to whatever monthly budget you specify for your home or businesses. Well, first we are going to describe the factors that can affect the cost in Azure. Then we are going to compare the pricing calculator and total cost of ownership, which is TCO calculator. We'll compare them. We'll describe the Azure cost management tools, and then we will describe the actual purpose or usage of something which is known as Azure tags. I think every time when you have created a resource in Azure Cloud, it has something before the review page, which is tags. What are the purpose of these tags? We need to discuss that also in this. First, there are some of the factors which are affecting the cost. Obviously, when you are creating a resource in Azure Cloud, whether it's a virtual machine, whether it's a database, or it's an application, whatever you're creating, first is what kind of resource you are creating. Resource type is important because costs are resource specific. So the usage that meter tracks the number of meters associated with the resource depends on the resource type. Obviously, when we discuss this thing, we mentioned that we have infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. So what kind of service you're creating, what kind of resource you're associating, that is important. Second thing is whether you are choosing or we are opting for a consumption model or not. Because with pay-as-you-go model, consumption is one of the biggest driver of cost, which can save a lot of money for you. Then we have to focus on maintenance. Monitoring your Azure footprint and maintaining your environment can help you identify and mitigate the costs that aren't necessary, such as shutting down the underused virtual machines, or maybe taking a backup, but do not keep the backup for a longer period of time, maybe a few months or years. Now, fourth one, which is associated with the cost, is geography. As we know, we have 60 plus regions available across the globe. Not every region is going to cost you the same when you create a resource in that. The same resource type can cost different amongst depending on the geographical area. Like most of the Switzerland regions are expensive, while most of the US regions are little cheaper than that. The fifth point is network traffic. While some inbound data transfers are free, the cost of outbound data or the data between Azure resources is impacted by the billing zones. When you are using VPN gateways, when you are trying to do virtual network peering, and when you are trying to transfer data from one network to another network, sometimes the outbound data is going to cost you, sometimes both inbound and outbound data is going to cost you. This cost is sometimes going to be very huge and sometimes negligible. It depends how much amount of data you are transferring from one point to another point. So that cost is also important. Then we have subscriptions. The type of the configuration of your subscription is also very important. We have hybrid cloud benefits in Azure subscription. We have some student subscriptions and free subscriptions which mostly cost high. And we have some enterprise level subscriptions which are actually going to give you the same resource with a little discount. Now when you are going for a subscription, just check which subscription you are using, because that is also something which is going to impact on your cost. Now, next we have to learn about Azure Marketplace. Now we know that we can go to Azure portal, and there also we have a marketplace which I can search for any product or service and I can get it there. When you go to Azure Marketplace, this allows customers to find, try, and purchase and provision applications and services from hundreds of leading service providers. These are not all created by Microsoft, but those services are created by the third-party providers. And all of them are certified to run their applications on Azure Cloud. Maybe these are open source container platforms, maybe these are virtual machines and database images, maybe you're going to use an application build and deployment software, which is making your application lifecycle management easier. Or maybe you're going to use some of the developer tools. We have 10,000 plus products available in the Azure Marketplace. If you have still not checked out them, you can go to this URL, which is azuremarketplace.microsoft.com. Based on your country, you can choose it, and then you have list of applications, services, software offerings available here. You can choose what kind of categories you are planning to look for. And for more details, I strongly advise you to go through this video so that you can understand what is the actual purpose of Microsoft Commercial Marketplace. Now, again, each and every product which is available there, I'm not saying it is very useful or very trustworthy to use, but it depends which companies are creating. As you can see, we have products from VMware, we have products from other companies also available here, which are trusted and reputed companies in the market. So when you are using these products, these applications, these products are going to help you to simplify your cloud journey. Now let's talk about pricing calculator. You can just use any search engine like Bing, and you can put Azure Pricing Calculator in that, which will take you to the link of Pricing Calculator, which is a tool that helps you to estimate the cost of Azure product. When you select a product, it is going to give you an options to choose like which region you would like to go for, what options of operating system, what options of stock keeping unit SKUs you are trying to select in that, what kind of support and billing options you are choosing in that. The moment you choose this configuration, it is going to give you an estimated monthly cost which you have to pay at the end of the month. This cost is 99% accurate. So when you're going to select any particular pricing calculator based estimation, this is exactly going to give you how much you have to pay at the end of the month. Also, on some Azure services, there are discounts. If you have a specific subscription, or maybe you are going for a 1 year or a 3 year reserve plans, you can get up to 60% discounts on couple of services. These services are also available in the pricing calculator with estimation. It's a very useful tool. You should go for that. Now, pricing calculator is going to give you a costing of a particular resource or a service on Azure Cloud. But the next better question is, if I know how to use pricing calculator, then I also need to know that if I move my on-premise resources to Azure, how much it is going to impact, how much cost impact is going to be there. This answer is going to be answered by TCO calculator, total cost of ownership. This is a tool which will give you an estimated cost of savings you can realize by migrating to Azure. If you have an on-premise service from last couple of years and now you are deciding that I want to move these resources to Azure Cloud. When you do this thing, there are different kind of costs which you have to calculate. which will come to like compute costing, data center costing, even whatever manpower or whatever electricity you're going to use. You have to keep everything in mind. This TCO calculator is going to give you an analysis where this is going to generate a report at the end of this, which will compare the costing of on-premise infrastructure with the cost of using Azure for a longer period of time. If you are using Azure for 1 year, 2 years, or maybe more than that, there are chances it's going to give you an estimate that moving to Azure Cloud is going to save you this much amount of money. Now, when we are doing this thing, there are also chances that is going to show you that maybe moving to Azure is not a right choice for you if you are using certain resources, or if you already have some kind of on-premise data centers available with you. Both the options are must to try so that you can understand before moving to Azure, you can understand that whether moving to Azure is cost beneficial for you or not. For this also, we have an exercise on Microsoft Learn website. I strongly recommend you to try both the calculators, total cost of ownership TCO calculator as well as Azure pricing calculator, because both are important to understand. And it is also important to understand that where you're going to use which one. Now, once we know the costing, once we know the estimation of the costing while moving to the cloud or while choosing particular service of Azure, we need to understand the cost management. Every Azure subscription is going to give you a cost management for every monthly billing report. It's going to give you a monthly billing as well as a cost analysis for your budget also. You can specify a fixed amount of budget that every month you do not want to spend more than this, and that is going to give you a forecast of that budget, that whether you're matching the resource utilization based on the budget or not. You can also get an alerts and get notified on your phones or emails whenever the cost is going to exceed that limit. This is a cost management which is an inbuilt utility associated with your subscription. So if you already have an organizational level subscription with the proper rights, you can go to the subscription and you can find the cost analysis, cost management section inside that, which will help you to understand the exact usage which you are using every month for your Azure resources. Now, last but not the least, we have one important term called tags. Tags are mainly useful for providing metadata for your Azure resources. When I create a virtual machine, when I create a database or any other service on Azure, I have to make sure that why am I using this service? For which client I have created this, for which project I am using this, or maybe for what purpose I'm doing this. Mostly when I do my corporate trainings, every time when I create a resource, I associate a tag with that with my client name. When I'm providing a client name, logically, they are going to organize the resources into that taxonomy. At the end of the month, if I want to get a consolidated billing from this, like how much I have spent in this particular training or for this particular client, I can get to know that consolidated billing at the end of the month so that I can charge them. You can also get the configuration of the user specific things. You can just associate everything which is just having a name value pair kind of thing. So your tags are just labels which you're associating with your resources, so that later on when you want to get consolidated billing, depending upon the date of purchase, depending upon the currency, depending upon whatever criteria you're specifying in that, you can get those exact resources and the costing associated with that. That's it for this video. I'll see you in the next video.